Right.
We're not worried about anything that shifts in the market. So this business was created to really advance during turbulent markets, because our investors can go out there knowingly buying properties, buying real estate, controlling real estate without worrying about a boulder coming behind them. Like, am I buying at the right time? It honestly doesn't matter as long as you get the right terms.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. Hope you're having a great week. We've got another great guest today. Zachary Beach is joining us from out in Rhode Island. At the age of 25, Zach decided to leave the world of bartending and jump into multifamily business, or the family business, actually, not multifamily. I'm always thinking multifamily. He was jumping into the family business. It was one of the first big risks he took in his life, as nothing was guaranteed. Plus, he knew absolutely nothing about real estate. Through hard work, in-house training, implementation, Zach has now completed over 100 deals. On top of that, he coaches students around the country how to buy and sell property, just like his family still does. Zach has over 6 years of experience, now runs all operations of Smart Real Estate Coach, on top of continuing to coach his students and associates. He has an amazing wife, Kayla, 2 small children. Zach, hey, thanks so much for joining us today. Really excited to dig into your story here.
Yeah, Lee, appreciate it, my man. Every time I hear that backstory, it gives me flashbacks, which I'm sure we'll talk about here today as well. I've been in real estate now for actually going on 7.5, almost 8 years now.
Okay.
It's been quite the journey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely want to get into that. Take us back to that, 7.5, 8 years ago. What were you doing at the time, Zach? And then how did you get into real estate? How'd you hear about it? How'd you get introduced? Sounds like it was some kind of a family thing, but take us back to where you were and how they got started.
Yeah, Lee, absolutely. So just give you some context. So I grew up with a single mother. She was a cashier at Lowe's. And so I didn't come from any type of financial education. Money never made it to the end of the week. We never had anything in savings. As you can imagine, every single potential financial paradigm that you could possibly have, I had no idea how to make money. I just learned how to work really hard. So those are my teachings. So as I grew up, and then the only reason why I went to college is because all my teachers told me I couldn't go to college. So I just worked really hard to get there. And then I used my college education to become a bartender and personal trainer, which makes total sense, right?
Right.
But I just had no idea what I wanted to do coming out of college. So I started bartending. I moved down from central Massachusetts and moved to this resort town called Newport, Rhode Island, which is an amazing spot. But what it does is it supports the tourist industry. So bartending, you make good money. So I said, that's what I need to do. Yep. So I walked in April when I was 21 years old, and I was actually still in college at the time. And I started bar backing, which really means you just you do the grunt work for the bartender so the bartender can make money. Worked my way up to that I was about 24 years old. And I ended up quitting that bartending to move into real estate. Just because I was bartending, personal training, I was burning the candle at both ends, meaning I was working late nights and then waking up super early in the morning, because the personal training world, you got to train everyone before they go off to work.
Right.
So you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning to be at the gym for 5, have a 5, a 6, a 7, and 8 appointment. Right. And then, but I went to bed at 3 o'clock. So as you can see, that starts to get rather draining on you. So I was looking for alternative ways. My wife and I were looking for alternative ways to make money. We got involved in, say, network marketing or some MLMs in order to bring some additional income in, because I was in the health world at that time. But then it started stacking up on top of each other and on top of each other. And my father-in-law, Chris, who has been in real estate for 30 plus years now, but at the time he was reinventing himself because he got crushed in 2008. He was a broker owner. Then he was doing fix and flips and condo conversions, but was personally guaranteeing and signing on all of these loans because that's what you did back then.
Yeah.
So then when '08 came, a third of his wealth, or I would say all of his wealth, went down to a third. So he was basically in debt from there.
Yeah.
All of his
I had Chris on my show, Zach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I got to hear that. So yeah. I remember now.
So
I remember that
you know
story.
him. So he was now reinventing himself at the time in which I was looking to figure out what the heck I was going to do in life. So I reached out to him. At the time, it was just him and my brother-in-law, Nick, working the small real estate investment company, this business where we buy and sell on terms. We do everything creatively, all creative financing. So I went to him and I said, hey, Chris, I don't know if I'm going to like real estate, but it's going to be better than what I'm doing right now. And if you're open to it, I'd like to start pitching in a little bit to see if I like it. So what I did then was I added something else in my day. So what I started doing is about 2 hours a day, I would just cold call expired listings or lists that are people that were on the market at one point in time with a realtor, but then couldn't sell. So now I'm cold calling these lists in between. And I did that for about 3 months. It started about in December. And then I ended up leaving bartending. I burned all my bridges, canceled all my clients on personal training, left bartending, and frankly stopped building my multi-level marketing company as well, and just burned all the bridges and went full-fledged into real estate because I knew I needed my full attention because I had to learn everything from scratch.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, joined the family business. At the begining, we got paid on, you killed what you ate. It's really,
Right.
So all we would do is just all three of us at the time, and my wife ended up joining us as well. All of us at the time just constantly were hustling, trying to get deals done. And that was the start of my real estate career. It was an absolute hustle, it was an absolute grind. And, but it was certainly well worth it, looking 8 years back now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Zach, one thing I want to pull out of there, and because I just feel like this, a lot of people can relate to this. It sounds like your mom taught you how to work hard. But didn't really teach you much beyond that as far as financial education. Probably because, nobody taught her. And I feel like I just had the same experience. I really value hard work and I've always, worked really hard and everybody in my family does. But yeah, when I learned about real estate, I'm like, what in the, like, how do I not know about this? Why did nobody tell me about this? Real estate is just one part of it, but really it's just financial education. Like, why did nobody tell me that there was another way to do things? Why did nobody tell me that there's more than just the option of just outwork everybody, work harder, put in more hours, trade more time for more money, work your way up. And then your time's worth more money. So, if you keep trading more time, you make more money. And like, it just seems like that's the only option. I feel, very fortunate to learn when I didn't know there's actually another way. And entrepreneurship is part of it. But then investing is part of it. There's these other things out there, entrepreneurship, being a business owner, investing, kind of getting into the Robert Kiyosaki, like the cash flow quadrant, being an employee is only one of the four squares. There's three other squares to that quadrant. And just most people don't know anything about that. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into because you guys over there, Smart Real Estate Coach, do a lot of great coaching. And I love that. I mean, that's the reason I have the podcast. I know you guys do a podcast over there as well. I'm really passionate about it because I want more people to have that light bulb moment that you and I had. You can just trade your time for money and you can try to be as good at that game as you can, but there's also an entirely different game you can play. And it's in my opinion, like much more lucrative. You can make your money work for you. You can be creative. You can use the skills of other people, build a business, things like that. So you've written a couple books, Zach. I want to talk about the one called The New Rules of Real Estate Investing.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little about that. What are the new rules? When did they change? Why are there new rules? Just dig into that a little bit for us, Zach, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a cool book that we did. We included a bunch of people that we communicated with, some of the top people in different niches in real estate investing. Sure. But what really drove us to create that book was that there was a different dynamic on how to buy and sell real estate. We were always taught, if you were taught how to buy real estate, you were taught that you got to go hire a realtor and then go look for these properties on market. And then if you found a property on market, you then go ahead and you go personally sign and get a mortgage. And then once you get the mortgage and you maybe place a tenant in the house and then you run that for 30 years. And then one day you're debt free. So there's just a totally new perspective when it comes to real estate investing in general. And this is that creative financing space. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, a bartender like myself, and my father-in-law is my partner, somebody that completely got demolished in '08. we had to be able to create leverage from things that we didn't have. So the way we were able to create leverage is by buying creatively, by buying on lease options or buying on owner financing where the seller is the bank, or buying subject to the existing financing, these sub-2 deals, these infamous sub-2 deals that nobody can figure out if they actually exist or if they're legal. But of course, I mean, we've done hundreds of these. There's a very proper way to set up. So it's really be able to creatively create real estate transactions by where you currently are. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like myself, where you didn't have the capital, didn't have the people, to provide you the capital, and there are ways you can get involved in real estate from the ground up with little to no money down, without signing personally, without going to banks. And then over time, what happened with us was that was the necessity, but then it became our rules. We said that if we're going to be involved in real estate, here's our box that we're not going to break these rules. We're not going to go raise a large amount of capital, even though investors now consistently are asking for us to invest their capital because of our returns. We're not going to go sign personally on any of our loans. I mean, we bought over 600 properties across the country over the last about 8 years. And there's not a single property that us or our students are personally guaranteed on. No single property that we're guaranteed on.
Yeah, that's new.
One property I ever personally signed on, and that was my own personal house. I bought one house on a lease option that I lived in. Actually ended up turning that to one of my first biggest deals, but then exited it. And then I also bought a property through traditional means. So I've been on both ends there. So that's the only property I've ever personally guaranteed debt on. And then also we're just not out there, constantly banging on banks' doors in order to get us to handle their capital. So
I love that.
Like the new rules that we created, and this is what we've now scaled. This is what we now present to our students. This is now the companies, the businesses that are being built around the country. Which in hindsight now we set up the foundation, because now as we look at the transition right now with interest rates rising, forbearances now being lifted, you got moratoriums now being lifted, you got, again, money's more expensive, you have people that are in arrears because of that forbearance is being lifted. There are more and more sellers nowadays that need this creative space in order to solve their challenge. So that way they're not losing out on equity or not damaging their credit for the rest of their lives, but also aren't willing to take 40 cents on the dollar, say from a wholesale flip, in order to get out of it. So there's a lot of people right now that this foundation's been set, that we could really help over the next 3 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's great, Zach. Yeah, I love that part about where, it can be a win for the seller. There's some sellers that, just don't, you think, well, why isn't everybody selling right now? Like if someone's got a house and they're thinking about selling, it's like, dude, put it on the market. But some people are not in a position to put it on the market, whether, there's liens against their house, or there's just some work that needs to be done that they can't afford to do, so you can't sell a house with, something that's not up to code, right? Because somebody can't come get a loan on it. So, you guys, you don't have to get a loan. You say, hey, I'll buy your house. I don't have to go get a loan on it. So you don't have to worry about that deck that's falling off your house, or, you know what I mean? Like, you guys can be creative. So it's a win for them. What else I love about it is that it's a great way to get started in real estate, because as you said, Zach, when you came into real estate, you didn't have any money to get started. So how do you save up? How long is it going to take you to save up for a 20% down payment on one house? And then you do that and you get to buy one house. And then how much longer do you have to wait till you buy the next one? Right. Whereas you guys come in, we can buy a house today because we don't need any money, maybe a little bit or whatever. But certainly not 20% of a down payment. So I love that about how it's easy to get started. So I'm not surprised, Zach, that you guys, have such a successful coaching program, because it's a great way for people to come in and get started. And then I think, I love real estate because there's so many different avenues. So maybe they get in and they get something going, get a good thing going. Maybe they add some other stuff. But maybe they love that so much they just do a bunch of that. But it gets you started. And I think that's the hardest part to me. Again, that's why I like doing the podcast. I'm trying to convince people to get started, but that is the hardest part, is getting started. So I love, the program that you guys do, Zach, because it does help people get started. People that come and say, well, I don't have any money. I can't do a 20% down payment. You don't have to. You can get started with this new way that you guys are teaching people.
Yeah, well, not only that. So yes, we work with a lot of people that are brand new. They want to get started. A lot of people that want to leave their W-2s because they want to, build out their own business, period. And we have a system and process to help them create a business. And then those are specifically looking for real estate. We got the system and process, coaching, hand-holding, everything to help them get there. But the other piece, though, too, is, and my father-in-law will attest to this, though, is we stick in this box in general. We stick with these rules because, I mean, at the end of the day, look at right now. Everybody's talking about, a potentially a market shift. And I know it's all scare tactics right now a bit as well. A new '08, I don't think it's going to happen. But at the end of the day, I don't care. Because I'm not personally guaranteeing any debt. We got long-term real estate deals.
Yeah, good point. Right.
We're not worried about anything that shifts in the market. So this business was created for to really advance during turbulent markets, because our investors can go out there knowingly buying properties, buying real estate, controlling real estate without worrying about a boulder coming behind them. Like, am I buying at the right time? It honestly doesn't matter as long as you get the right terms. Yeah. And I say that because the dollar amount is one of the terms that we work with. Our typical terms are, purchase price or locked in amount of equity. What's the monthly overhead, and then also the time frame that you have before you have to pay off the loan or pay off the seller, depending on how you structure it. And when we're getting these long-term deals, 5, 10, 20, 30-year deals where we don't have balloons due until then, it doesn't matter what the market does. We go through 10 years, we're going to be at the top of the market again, even if we need to just hold on to the property, sit tight, and continue to cash flow it via one of our ways of exiting. So we don't care. So it's a great, in my opinion, one of the most risk-averse real estate niches there are. Little to no money down, not personally guaranteeing debt. Also, we have a huge upside because the way we structure and exit our deals are with tenant buyers or buyers that need time to qualify for loans. And that's when we really create our 3 payday system, which gives us money now, money over time, and money in the future. So we're able to really get these massive amounts of returns on a zero money down deal or a little to no money down deal, because our average paydays or our average profit is somewhere around $75,000 over a 3 to 5 year term. So people just continue to stack those deals on top of each other, which puts them in a huge leverage market. And because we have these terms, these timeframes, it really doesn't matter what the market does.
Yeah, really good stuff. I would just suggest people, and we'll put your stuff in the show notes that, to send people over to Smart Real Estate Coach and read those books you guys have written, because it's very powerful as you just outlined there. I'd like to shift a little bit, Zach. I know, so working with your father-in-law, brother-in-law, wife, what's it like, man, working with family? What have you learned from that? How's that gone?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's probably one of the number one questions that people ask me all the time.
Yeah.
Is how is it working with family? And the way I always look at it is you always want to surround yourself with the smartest people in the room. They happen to be the smartest people in the room at the time, which was awesome. And then the best thing about it was then I had a really good relationship with them. Me and my wife started dating when I was in 6th grade. So I've known them forever.
Yeah.
A dynamic, sure, that, you got to always be careful around. But a major thing that we live by is one of our core values, which is clear, blunt, and to the point. And the reason why we stuck by that value is because when you are dealing with family and you are dealing with money and you are dealing with business, if there's no clear lines of communication, that's when things get blurred, and that's when, relationships deteriorate. So we're very specific on making sure that everybody knows what's happening, how everybody feels, good, bad, or indifferent at any time. That way we can make the best decisions possible. So we have that. And then one of the other main things that we do is we don't talk about negative parts of the business when the business day is over. At one point in time in Newport, Rhode Island, we all lived on this 2-street area. So we would see each other. And our running joke was that at the end of the day, when we were all walking home, we split ways. We would just wave to each other and say, "Hey, how was your day today?" So we just did that just to separate. All right, now we're in if we're gonna be family, we're hanging out now as family, not necessarily as business partners. If there's some cool things that went on and that's exciting, we can talk about it. But nobody brings up any bad things that are going on at the office, anything like that. That way we can keep that separate.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea. Yeah, there's enough time for that during the business day, right? What have you learned through your stories, Zach, that you want to make sure you teach your kids? Maybe that's different than what you were taught or weren't taught.
That's a good question. I think my entire like drive right now is to present better opportunities to to my kids. I mean, we didn't dive too deep into my story, which was in the original book, but I went through a massive thing with drug abuse growing up. So I had to basically reinvent myself from the ground up, meaning mentally, emotionally, physically. So I just always want to consistently put my kids in the best frame of mind, or put them in the best place to be to get the best opportunity. So I just consistently want to try to show them how to not do it sometimes versus do it. Yeah. So that's kind of one of my takes on it. It's just, hey, I want to be open and honest about my story. That way you can take the lessons learned that I learned and hopefully apply them versus going through them. But at the end of the day, as long as my kids work hard and they consistently go after things that they're passionate about, think creatively, and they'll make it work.
Yeah, think creatively. That I'm sure they're going to hear enough about that growing up around the family business to think creatively instead of just doing it the traditional way. Yeah, which could mean, I think about this, just, I don't think there's, this just everybody's got to go to college anymore. That it just got so popular for so long. And it seemed like that was just pushed on everybody. Whereas, there may be better options for people.
Yeah, I agree with you. My brother-in-law, who's actually sitting in the office next to me, they actually went a completely different route. He didn't want to go to college. So what they did was, Chris and Kim, my in-laws, what they did was they created a plan based on their mentors. And Nick wanted to be a part of real estate. He ended up becoming a realtor for 8 years. And they created a seminar list for him to be going to, seminars or masterminds. Oh, wow. And they created that education versus the traditional education, which makes a ton of sense, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. I would say that'd be another huge thing that you learn. It's just go after something that's big, that's worth, investing your time in, that's worth investing the sacrifices, that's worth, the sleepless nights and the early mornings, because you're going to really spend the same energy on that as you are, kind of working for somebody else or chasing after somebody else's dreams. You might as well go after your own. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. Yeah. Especially if you got to bend that way. I mean, some people, maybe it's just not for them. And maybe, maybe our kids won't be for that, but man, if they are, just open that up to them. Cause so many people do want to do that, and they just get herded into college with everybody else and doing what everybody else does. And then, have to find out later that, they're built for something else. Yeah. That took me a long time. Yeah, me too. This whole world of entrepreneurship, which I'm so glad that I found, has been quite the journey. And things that I've learned are just, I never realized how much you need to work on yourself, and then everything else builds around it, which is an amazing thing to discover, which is you can't control everything else around you, but you can control you and how you develop. Because once you develop, you become a better leader, better business owner, better real estate investor, make better financial decisions. So just consistently working on you, which is super important. Absolutely. Is your wife still working in the business with you? My wife hasn't been working in the business with us now for about 3 years. Okay. It was one of our goals. Yep. Actually, it's over 4 years now. It was one of our goals that when we went to have children, that we got her to a point where she could be at home with the kids until they went off to school. So yeah, she hasn't been working with us for about 4 years. That was a huge goal of ours that we were able to accomplish. And it's been amazing. For all the mothers out there, man, you do have the hardest job. I know, but the hardest job. I was going to make the same comment. I was going to say, so she took a much harder job and allowed you to stay with the easier job. Yes. Oh man, for sure. I guess that's what my wife does that. Now our kids are 6 and 8 and are in school more. We do a hybrid homeschool program. So they're only in school 2 days a week, but now she's able to jump kind of more into the business actually, since the kids are getting older. But yeah, oh my goodness. I love working with my wife. We balance each other. Yeah. She is very analytical, black and white. I tend to be more creative, more vision, but we support each other. So it's really, I always love working with her. I'm sure I will work with her again. One of the businesses we create at some point in time. No, you kind of just explained my wife and I, and I'm much more a risk taker.
and she's very risk adverse. So yeah, we balance each other out very well too. It's a lot of fun. Well, good stuff, man. Hey, I always like to wrap up with the same question, everybody. Well, it's like same question, but asked two different ways. One, so what do you think is the most important, like the key ingredient for becoming a successful real estate investor?
I love the question. The key ingredient to be a
yeah,
good
give me one thing.
The best real estate investor. I think we've been sticking on this for most of this conversation, which is the willingness to learn, willingness to grow. There's a lot of people. So a lot of the students that come to us, there's a huge chasm that happens because they've worked for somebody else forever, and now they're trying to build their own business. And there's so many more skills in development of the mind that needs to happen in order for them to be successful real estate investors and or entrepreneurs.
Yep.
It's the skill sets that we now take for granted as entrepreneurs, but it's the skill sets that each and every person needs to learn. And a lot of it has to do with the development of the mindset and consistently working on themselves.
Yep. No, absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, if you want to do something new, if you want to go a different route, if you want to play a different game, like you and I've been talking about, you have to learn some new things, obviously. So yeah, that willingness to learn, it can really open up your mind, open up your life, as far as work and stuff. So a little play on that question. What's the key ingredient you think for while you're becoming a successful real estate investor, maintaining your priorities, keeping your family as a priority, maybe faith, if that's important to you? What's the key ingredient for making sure that you keep your priorities straight?
Keeping the priorities straight. I think first and foremost, you have to understand what your priorities are. I think we can all get lost in that when we're chasing a dream, when we're trying to build wealth, when we're building multiple businesses at the same time. It's hard to consistently keep those priorities. But I think it's number one, understanding your priorities. And number two is putting those things on the calendar.
Yeah.
I just went through some coaching students, working with some students recently, and we went through this exercise. I don't know if you ever been through this story or understand the exercise of the big rocks.
Yeah.
Maybe
yes.
knows this, but
yep.
There's just that old story about the professor, and they have the rocks, the gravel, the sand, and the water.
Yep.
And there's only one way to be able to fit all of them into the jar, and that is to put your big rocks in first, then your gravel, then your sand, then your water. If you do it any other way, nothing fits, or everything doesn't fit. So being very specific of number one, understanding your priorities, and once you do, then putting those on your calendar first.
Yes.
Then maneuver everything else after that. It sounds simple, but most people, I would say most of us don't do it or are not consistent about doing it.
Yeah. Really well said, Zach. And I've heard that, that word picture before, and it's simple, but it's profound. And you see that in your life because it is easy. And I think especially when you become an entrepreneur to feel like work is the most important thing because there's these fires that you got to put out, or, it's the tyranny of the urgent, I think is what they call that. Like it seems so urgent. So you wake up and that's the stuff you're thinking about, but yeah, you've got to really be disciplined. I totally agree with you. Just remind yourself just try to remind, why are you building a business? Why are you doing a business? Why are you trying to make money? For almost everybody, it's because of your family. So go back to that and prioritize that then that should be the most important thing. Like you said, get that on your schedule, put that on your schedule first.
Yeah. One really other additional comment I would say though, is especially those that are newly getting into entrepreneurship, there's no balance. I just want everyone to know that. There's no work-life balance. I was told this thing is called work-life harmony. And that is making sure that everything's in harmony at home and everything's in harmony at the office. Doesn't mean that you're spending equal amount of time. And it doesn't mean that every weekend you're spending with your family and every night you're spending with your family and every day you're spending at the office. That's not the case. There's going to be certain times during business cycles or during certain times of the week where the business, you're 90 in, you're 90% in, and you're 10% family. But then there's other times where you're 90% family and 10% in the business. But that's the best thing about about entrepreneurship is like right now we're about to go on Easter. I'm sure this will come on after that, but I can take off and go to Vermont for 4 days.
Yeah,
that's my choice, right? Yep. Versus if I was if I had to work for somebody else, that may not be a choice. But I'll be all in with my family there. But when I get back, like this week though, I've been 90% business because I'm cramming, short week, cramming everything in, making sure everything's set up. And that's just, part of it. So you find your own rhythm as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
We all have different tendencies, different skills, different, perspectives. But you find that if you can find that rhythm where everything's in harmony, not in balance, but in harmony, then you'll be more successful.
Yeah, really well said, Zach. Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, thanks so much, man. This has been really good. I want to send people your way. I've got all the links. I know you guys are active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that. So we'll put all those social media links in there. I know you guys have a free giveaway. So we're going to put the link for that, a free strategy call. We'll put the link for that. All this is over at smartrealestatecoach.com. That's the best place to send people, Zach.
Yeah, smartrealestatecoach.com. 2 great places to start because I know you're going to see these links. If you want to see our business model in its entirety, smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class.
Yep.
And then also, if you want to speak to one of our teammates or myself, just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action and hop on a 15-minute strategy call where we'll work through where you currently are and how we may be able to, incorporate our business model to help you create these 3 paydays and help you start building your real estate business.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Good stuff, Zach. Thanks again for coming on, man. It was really a blessing to have you on and, learn so much from you. And there's so much more to learn. Really like what you guys are doing. I think it's a great way for people to get started, but then also, like you're saying, it's a great way to protect yourself against, maybe a downturn, maybe a recession when you're, not signing on debt. I think back, I was just thinking about your father-in-law and, how, in 08, it wasn't that, necessarily that people did a bunch of things wrong. A lot of times it was the banks that were really hurting. So they had to come after people. And so it was like asking people to bail them, them out because they were underwater. So they got in such a bad position that it put other people in bad positions. So you guys avoid all that by doing financing. So really good stuff. Well, hey, Zach, thanks again. And thanks for all you guys do. And take it easy, Zach.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.